please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, back home on the Lal Street, the market saw a sharp pullback in the last hour of trade, regained some lost ground as well. To give you a couple of details, in yesterday's trading session, we did see a bounce back after 5 trading sessions, but we did see losses. Remember, on a closing basis, the Nifty rallied and in fact reclaimed the 11,000 mark odd. From the lows, was up close to around 180 points. The Bank Nifty was up more than 550 to around 600 points odd. This morning, the SGX Nifty is indicating a green start. Ekta, how are you reading it?
Yes, absolutely, Nigel. Well, like you mentioned, yesterday was in fact a volatile session in terms of what we saw. The recovery was largely led by financials. And in terms of the equity markets, the Nifty recovered to close above 11,000. The rupee closed weak on a day-on-day basis slightly, so 72.69 is where the rupee closed. The bond yield was at around 8.13% in terms of a closing yesterday. And in terms of the flow picture, the FIIs net sold around 1,232 odd crores. The DIIs bought quite significantly at around 2,284 crores in yesterday's trade. Now, in terms of the Qs today, yes, crude has cooled off, but it hit highs of around 82.2, which is the highest that we've seen since November 2014. Now, Trump did say that, you know, the OPEC is ripping off the rest of the world. But despite the statements and despite the earlier tweets from Trump also about oil prices, it really hasn't impacted the market as much in terms of the prices. In fact, they've gone up after those earlier tweets that he had made. Now, in terms of the US markets, mixed close there. And if you're talking about the SGX, it's largely indicating that it could be a positive start for us. So let's see what happens. And even though it is a positive start, it is the intraday volatility that we need to watch out for. Whether this is a buy on dips market, how confident the market is about specific stocks and levels at this point in time. Now, yes, remember that yesterday the market was also supported by statements from LIC chairman saying that they will try and make sure IL&FS does not collapse. So maybe that sort of confidence would probably continue into today's trading session, and all eyes would be on hopes of a CRR cut in order to infuse liquidity. So I think that underlying sentiment will probably be driven by those kind of hopes. And remember, we have the RBI policy next week in any case. Now, in terms of the important stocks in news, Yes Bank has asked for an extension of Rana Kapoor's term to complete FY19. So that was one of the stocks that we were watching out for in yesterday's trade. Besides that, I'd be watching out for NBFC stocks, any sort of recovery, follow-on buying in financial stocks, which saw some amount of buying in yesterday's trade. For example, Bajaj Finance. Rupee, I would again be watching out for levels on the rupee and whether it moves closer to 73 or not. Remember, it was a higher or a worse off closing for the rupee on a day-on-day basis, so it's moving closer towards that level. The record low is 72.99. The Nifty 200-day moving average of 10,752 is the other level that I'd probably watch out keenly for, and whether we can support 10,800 also. We've tested that level twice now. Mid-cap index underperformance, it's down over 3% on a week-to-date basis at this point in time. Events to watch: Fed meet outcome, September expiry tomorrow, RBI meet with IL&FS shareholders on the 28th of September. There's a GST Council meet which is going to take place, and obviously the RBI policy next week. A lot of cues to work with. All right, a lot of cues to work with, so we'll keep an eye out on all those cues. But what about stocks we should be focusing on? Yes Bank would be in focus. Yes, like I mentioned, Yes Bank, they formed a search and selection committee. They've asked RBI to give Rana Kapoor time in order to, you know, for the FY19 numbers, etc. So let's see what happens with the stock. It was quite volatile in the second half of the trading session yesterday. Moody's has affirmed Bank of Baroda's rating outlook is stable. PSU banks would be in focus, as the DFS secretary has said that, you know, the focus will be on arresting further slippages. Banks expect to monetize close to 18,000 crores this year via non-core divestments, etc. So a lot of statements coming in there. Glenmark, the board is going to meet on Friday to consider tenders or buybacks of an FCCB worth $200 million. Avenue Supermart, CRISIL has upgraded its rating, so that stock would be in focus. IL&FS Transport, again, you know, Brickworth has revised its rating on its NCDs worth 3,550 odd crores. So again, that stock would be in focus. Central Bank of India board meeting on September 28th to consider additional equity capital. And lastly, something like an Adani Green Energy. They won a tender for a wind generation project. So that stock will be in focus as well.
Okay, all right, Ekta. Thanks so much for that. Well, we also spoke to Manishi Ray Chowdhury of BNP Paribas and Gautam Chowcharya of UBS Securities on what they make of the market and the triggers going forward. Let's listen in to what they had to tell us.
The current level of volatility might actually continue for some more time because the factors that are contributing to the currency volatility would possibly last a while longer. We are already seeing the Brent crude at about 81.4 or so, and we think that in the near term, maybe till the first quarter of 2019, oil prices could remain elevated because of the various geopolitical concerns that we are seeing. Consequently, we think that even the pressure on the Indian currency might continue in the short term. The current concern that the banks have about lending to the NBFCs, and which stems from the non-performing asset-related concerns and also the ALM-related concerns, the asset liability management-related concerns, that we think would likely continue in the near term.
Our fair value for Nifty for December 18 still remains 10,500. So any levels below that would make the risk reward attractive for buying Nifty or broader markets. The trigger in the near term could obviously be not just liquidity infusion, but some measures by the government and policymakers to give confidence to the broader markets, both in terms of liquidity as well as solvency issues around the various institutions.
Oil and FS group companies, they perked up in trade after the largest shareholder in the debt-ridden company vowed not to let the company collapse. Now, LIC chairman Mr. V.K. Sharma said that the state-run insurer is open to all options, including hiking stake in the company. LIC owns, remember, little over 25% stake in Island FS, and the chairman met Finance Minister Arun Jaitley before he made this assurance. The LIC chief also played down fears of a contagion effect spreading in the markets.
Huge concern. It's a very big concern.
No, we will all try to see that it does not collapse.
Well, staying with the Island FS situation, the company is planning a rights issue of more than 4,500 crore rupees to raise some funds. Now, sources in Island FS say that most shareholders are believed to be interested in investing in this particular rights issue. However, HDFC, which holds roughly around 9% stake in Island FS, is not very keen to do so. In an exclusive conversation, CEO KK Mistry told Lata Venkatesh that HDFC is only a passive shareholder and is not inclined to subscribe to this rights issue.
Was that just a freak freeze in the market? Is all well?
I think it's exaggerated. The whole worry in the market has been hugely over exaggerated, caused by rumors and probably caused by some short selling somewhere or whatever happened in the market. I don't think there is that much fear. I think there is enough liquidity in the market. Yes, there is not abundant liquidity, but there is enough liquidity to make things going.
We have the LIC chairman saying that they will do all that they can. They will try to do all that they can to prevent a collapse. You're a shareholder too. You will subscribe to the rights issue?
See, Lata, we are a very passive shareholder. We don't have a representation on the board. There is no one from HDFC sitting on the board of the ILFS as we speak today. So we are a passive shareholder. My inclination would be no, but it's something we'll have to take to our board and take a call on what to do.
Okay. That will be done after the board?
After we get to know more details about what exactly they're planning and what their outlook is and what their plans are.
And the RBI meeting on 20?
RBI meeting was there on Friday, but the RBI meeting is, I think, more for the RBI to understand what each shareholder feels.
Okay. Okay. So you will make up your mind.
There are active shareholders in ILFS and there are not active shareholders like us in ILFS.
Okay. But do you have some idea of their assets? Do you think if a line of credit is given?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I do believe so. If you ask me personally, and I'm not fully conversant with the balance sheet, but their assets are not bad. Their long-term assets are of good quality. It's just that realizing a road project or realizing a water project or something which is it's really very long-term, and you can't sell it in a hurry. So you have to have a little bit of asset liability management where you fund these kind of assets more out of long-term liabilities rather than short-term liabilities.
Well, and Yes Bank's board has decided to seek more time for Rana Kapoor to stay on as the MD and CEO. The board also decided to set up a search committee to find a new CEO and also sought a minimum of 3 months extension for Rana Kapoor. Ritu Singh joins in with more details on the same. Ritu.
The biggest takeaway from Yes Bank's board meeting is that the board has sought an extension for Rana Kapoor to stay on as MD and CEO of the bank beyond 30th of January 2019, which is when RBI has asked him to step down. They want Rana Kapoor to stay on till at least 30th of April 2019 so that the financial results can be closed, and if RBI permits, up till 30th September 2019 for him to participate in the annual general meeting. Now, the board has said that this is in light of the contribution that Rana Kapoor has made and the fact that 4 months will be too little time to find a successor. The second important takeaway is that they have formed, as we have reported, a search and selection panel to identify the successor to Rana Kapoor. There will be 3 internal members and 2 external members that are yet to be named. The third important takeaway is that Pralay Mondal and Rajat Monga will be elevated, or the board seeks to elevate them to an executive director position. This will again be subject to Reserve Bank of India's approval, and this will be done keeping in mind the long-term succession planning for the bank. But all of this aside, Madhu Kapoor's consent will also be required for the appointment of directors. That remains to be seen, and as far as we understand from sources, she will be uncomfortable with Rana Kapoor being allowed to stay on till the 30th of September. So in either case, looks like it is going to be a long-drawn process.
Well, we spoke to a couple of board members and, in fact, to other legal experts on what they make of this development. Let's listen in to what they had to tell us.
In the estimate of the board, April 30th was the time up to which, it would be probably feasible to have a smooth process of selection. Not to be unduly rushed, and most of the time, when you do find the right person, then the person himself or herself would also need a little bit of time to come on board. Typically, most people have a severance period. So there are a lot of things which have to be done before a person actually comes on board. Every organization is different, its size is different, its evolution is different. This is a bank which is a greenfield bank which has grown, over a fairly short period. And therefore, its readiness for having a top leader may be very different.
Okay.
Some people may argue that this should have been thought of at the inception, but maybe at the point of inception, nobody would have imagined that it would reach a size and a scale that it has today.
Okay.
And that has been quite phenomenal, frankly.
Okay.
And therefore, the readiness may not be what one might think it ought to be with the benefit of knowing today's reality.
Reserve Bank having first said that he will continue till further orders and then giving further orders. So they would have taken all the regions that were there and given a thing. So at this juncture, to me, they would not be willing to give any further extension of time, and that too for 9 months. That is a too long time, and then saying that you are finding a successor only in a year's time, it's a little bit difficult to digest. But one doesn't know what will be the Reserve Bank's view. Getting extension up to 31st March could be a bit logical, but extending it to September, I don't think anybody is going to buy that logic.
If there was any kind of speculation in terms of saying what could the board possibly do, I suppose, at least to that extent, I must say that there is, some kind of a mature view. Whether it should be extended, there are 2 parts to this entire discussion. One is there is an acceptance that the change is a must. Now, the second part is whether that change will happen and how will that change happen. Will that happen with the influence of the current same board and the same position, same people, or will there be an independent assessment of that? Something, once again, I think the board should have at least consulted the regulator.
As a regulated entity, there are very few grounds for you to bargain with the regulator. And within the press release, the second point seems to suggest you are almost bargaining with the regulators for more time. Generally, that doesn't go down too well. If the regulator has made up their mind, I think any changes to the board, I think, will also need Supreme Court approval, because I think there was an embargo or a freeze in terms of, the board of directors being frozen at 7 directors. Any addition had to be approved by both the promoter groups, etc. So I think there may be it may not just need RBI approval. There may be a Supreme Court approval needed.
Okay.